Okay, so as your social studies teacher, it's 9/11, right? 2000. So it's been 19 years since the attacks on 9/11. Okay, and so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that today because, well, you weren't alive and you don't remember. And I don't know how much you've been taught over the years about it and so forth. Okay. I mean, you guys know much about 9/11? Is that something you're pretty familiar with? Or, you know how many planes were hijacked? How many? 4. Okay. So the people that hijacked the planes, okay, there were 19 total. 18 of them were from Saudi Arabia. Okay, they were all in the country legally, so they came in on visas. Okay, the way some terror cells work are like this: you have what are called sleeper cells. So they send them into the country, and they all 19 weren't together. They were in different parts of the country. Okay, some were in Florida, some were in Nevada, Kentucky, Michigan. Okay, and they were all given instructions, specific instructions to do certain things, like learn how to fly a plane. Okay, so you had some of these guys showing up in Florida at a flight training center. I heard an ad on the radio this morning for Augusta Flight School. Okay, you can go to Augusta and learn how to fly a plane. Okay, these guys were showing up and saying, you know, I don't really want to learn how to take off or land a plane. I just want to be able to fly a plane in the air. Does that make any sense? So alarm bells didn't go off. I mean, they said, okay, well, we'll teach you how to fly a plane. All right. And then over time, they're given new instructions. Now, these people are given money to live, okay, while they're in the United States by Al Qaeda. And on 9/11, September 11th is an important date in world history when it comes to Islam. And it goes back to the time of the Crusades and a major battle that took place on 9/11. So historically, it's kind of an important date. And so on that day, planes leaving Boston and New York were hijacked. And guys, in previous years leading up to this, when planes were hijacked, pilots were taught around the world to get the plane on the ground and, you know, comply with the hijackers, because you got hundreds of people on board. Okay, and you don't want the plane to crash and that sort of thing. So just comply. Go along with what they're asking you to do so everybody doesn't die. And so in, you know, other hostage situations, hijack situations like this, they were usually resolved on the ground. Okay, like, you know, special forces storming the plane, that sort of thing. And usually the hijackers wanted something in return. They wanted some of their friends to be released from prison or a prisoner swap, this sort of thing. Okay. In this case, so when the hijack happened, the pilots are complying. Okay, and they use box cutters to hijack the plane, not guns. You know, because you can't. It was hard to get guns on the plane, and so using this, the crews complied. So the planes were flying out going west, and then they turned around when the hijack took place and started heading back towards New York and Washington, D.C. Okay. Just personally for me, back when this happened, the AC hadn't been built yet, that whole gymnasium and all that. It was just, it was grass. And we had trailers out there. that we were teaching in. Okay, because we had too many students. So the whole social studies department was out there in trailers. Okay, you guys, portable classrooms, which was awesome, by the way, because there was no intercom system. You had your own AC unit, you had windows and a door. I mean, it was great. You could control your own climate. You could take the kids outside on the deck. I mean, it was pretty nice, even though it was kind of, a crappy trailer. I was on the crappy one. But it was second hour, about 9 o'clock. And I remember the student's name that came in. His name was, oh gosh, now I'm going to forget it. Blake Creer was his name. And he came in and said, Mr. Ebright, a plane has flown into the Twin Towers. See, the World Trade Center, as we all know it today, I didn't even know it was called that. It's the Twin Towers in New York. And I'm like, oh man, that's crazy. I'm thinking a small plane, got off course and accidentally ran into the building. I mean, that's what everybody was thinking. Okay. And then I had a TV in my room. It was a little, and it was color. It had rabbit ears. Okay. No cable out there. And so I turned on the TV. And a few minutes after I turned on the TV, the second plane hit. And then everybody knew, something's going on here. This is an attack. And then word breaks about a plane hitting the Pentagon in D.C., which is where the Department of Defense is. That's where the military is. Okay, that's the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, all that is based in the Pentagon, the whole Department of Defense. It's a huge building. And then, of course, Flight 93, United Flight 93, crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Okay? So today, President Trump will be going to Shanksville, as will candidate Biden. And Vice President Pence will be in New York. And then I think Biden's going to New York after he goes to Pennsylvania. They'll be there at different times. Have any of you guys been to New York City and been to the memorial there? You have been there? Yeah, it's pretty impressive. If you ever get a chance, you should go down there. They have basically a museum built underground where you can see the structure, how the structure was, the buildings, okay, because it shows you the pillars at the under the ground. And they have a lot of artifacts and so forth in there as well. And then there's the fountains with all the names on it. United Flight 93 went down after it was the last plane to crash. The passengers on the plane had cell phones. And they were getting phone calls from people at home. Their loved ones knew they were flying that day. And they were calling the people on the plane and telling them planes have been hijacked and flown into the World Trade Center. And they're on a plane that's been hijacked. They're in the back of the plane talking to their loved ones. You guys know this story? You know the story? Okay. So it's really, there's a movie called Flight 93, which is pretty good. So the people in the plane realized what was happening. I mean, they're like, the hijacker's going to fly this plane into a building. And then they decided not to let them do that. And so while they're on their phone, and there's audio recordings of this, and people talking to their loved ones. There's one guy in particular, his name's Beamer, his last name's Beamer. and he's in the back of the plane with a group of other guys. And they're like talking, his wife's on the phone with him. He goes, honey, we're going to try and take the plane back. We're going to try and take it back over. And the last words his wife ever heard him say is, you know, they were all getting ready, and he said, let's roll. Let's roll. And obviously, in an attempt to take back the plane went down in an empty field. Okay. That plane was either destined for the White House or the Capitol building. Okay, it was going to Washington. All right, so the people on Flight 93 are heroes. You know what I mean? They stopped another massive explosion from taking place. Now, the buildings in the World Trade Center, I remember watching this, guys, and thinking, you know, how many people work in those buildings? I'm thinking 25,000 people. You know, we're gonna have tens of thousands of people dead. Well, as it turns out, you know, many of them were able to get out if you were below the floors where the planes hit. The ones that were at the floors where the planes hit and above, almost all of them would perish. Okay, and then the firefighters that are trying to get in while everybody's coming out, they were going in. Okay, and that's why we really pay homage to the first responders on 9/11. Okay, there's a really good documentary that HBO did. It's called In Memoriam 9/11, and every 9/11 since then that we've been in school, it hadn't been on like on a weekend. I've shown that video. It's very difficult to watch. The mayor of New York City at the time was a guy named Mayor Giuliani, Rudy Giuliani. I don't know if you've ever heard that name. Most see him as one of the greatest mayors of New York City in history. He really cleaned up that city. I mean, it used to be dangerous to go down to Times Square. I mean, you get muggings, and they had, you know, peep shows and strip clubs and homeless people. And you've been to New York, you've been to Times Square. I mean, you feel safe. I mean, it's lights and shops and restaurants, and it's really cool. I've been there twice, and I loved it. It's just awesome. I love New York. Of all the big cities I've ever been to, I like New York the best. I mean, I've been to Chicago, Philly. Now I've been out to the West Coast, but New York's a cool town, and Giuliani made that town safe. Well, the morning it happened was a Tuesday, and they were having an election. It was a primary election, okay, to choose the candidates that would run in November, okay? And so there was a film crew with Mayor Giuliani that morning that was going to be following him around during the primary, okay? And so when the first plane hit, the film crew's with Giuliani, and he's like, what's going on? You know, and he's like, we need to get down there. So him and his team started heading down towards Manhattan. This is pretty close to the tip of Manhattan, okay? And where you have, on one side, you have the Hudson River and the East River on the other side, and then you get the bay, okay, the harbor, and where the Statue of Liberty is. And so they start heading down, and then the second plane hits. And then he knows, holy crap, okay? And so the chief of police, I mean, they're calling the Pentagon. The Pentagon's been hit. They're calling for air support. How does the chief of police of New York City call in for air support? How do you call in the military, you know? And I was listening to radio this morning at McConnell. They said as soon as that second plane hit, they were putting up barricades at McConnell Air Force Base, shutting it down. I mean, we're under attack. And so everywhere around the country, every plane that was in the air, you know, hundreds of planes in the air over the United States that morning they all had to land as quickly as possible at whatever airport was closest. Okay, so the whole country just, and the rest of the day while we're in class, I got the TV on and we're just watching it, and everybody's in shock. I mean, it's just, we were under attack, and nobody really understood what was going on. After a couple of days, we put some pieces together and figured it out, okay, who it was. And it was this group Al-Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden. So the video, and I'm going to post it on Canvas, and I make it like give you an optional assignment to maybe, write a paragraph or something what you thought about. Now listen, they pulled together as much video as they could of the planes hitting New York. So this focuses on New York, not so much Shanksville, Pennsylvania, in the Pentagon. And so you get to see, I mean, like New Yorkers filming the planes hitting and stuff. Okay, so they show you all that, and then the aftermath when the towers come down. There's a lot of footage. This is one of the most documented events in history because of cell phone cameras and so forth. Okay. So there's a lot of quality video. Okay. They also show people jumping from the buildings. Okay, so that's a part where it's really hard to watch. So like I give a big disclaimer when I show this in class. I'm like, if you may have a hard time watching this, you can go sit in the hallway or go to the library, just because it's hard to watch. But we have to remember what happened. And that's why I'm talking about it, guys. You have to understand why we were attacked. Now, in my history class, I do a really good 2 to 3 day summary of how we got to 9/11, starting in 1979, moving forward, okay? And the video, I was doing it yesterday, and the video I was doing for history, for some reason, the dang thing didn't record. So I've got to do, I'm going to do a screencast and redo the second half of it, but I can post that as well if anybody's interested in it. It's pretty interesting stuff. But, so around 3,000 Americans died that day, which was the biggest disaster, civilian disaster in American history. Pearl Harbor, we had 2,300 Americans died during Pearl Harbor. So this had more deaths. Now, these were civilians. Okay, Pearl Harbor, most of the deaths were Navy sailors. There were some Army and Marines killed at Pearl Harbor as well. And like 70 civilians. So this was 3,000 civilians. They were going after our economic system, guys. They were trying to destroy our economy. And in a sense, they did great damage to our economy. It would take about 8 years for the stock market to get back where it was from 2001. Okay. And then just the personal tragedies of it all, with the families, the children of the dead, and then the cleanup crews, and how they were exposed to asbestos and so forth. So a lot of people having side effects from like cancer, from helping with the cleanup. And there is a fund for that, that the government put out there. And some people don't think the government's done enough to help these people. I don't know if you guys know Jon Stewart, the comedy show, Jon Stewart. He was a big advocate for getting Congress to, push that money out to help those folks. So anyhow, the 19th anniversary today, and this will be something that's in the new textbooks, and that your kids will be learning about for when they grow up. And it was was a nightmare. But we came through. President Bush, and then we went to Afghanistan, and then a couple of years later we went to Iraq. We had 2 wars. Right now, we are trying to end that war in Afghanistan. We've been there for 19 years. Okay. The Soviets invaded Afghanistan in 1979, the Soviet Union, and they bordered Afghanistan. So they were right next to it. They fought there for 10 years and could not subdue Afghanistan. So I don't know what we were thinking from halfway around the world that we could subdue Afghanistan. We've been at it for 19 years and realized that it's pretty much impossible. It's just such a different country, and it's rugged, it's mountainous, and there's so many different factions, and it's just, it's a war you can't win. Okay. But hopefully, as we leave, the Afghan National Army and the Afghan National Police are able to secure their country, so that those people don't have to live under the Taliban, which is, like this Middle Ages radical fundamentalist Muslim group that don't allow women to learn to read, go to school, leave the house without the male family member. I mean, beheadings for violating Sharia law, no soccer games, no pleasures in life, except for the men, of course, that can do whatever they want. Okay, it's a horrible society to live under that people were under the Taliban. Okay, and Al Qaeda was allowed to exist there, and that's where they did all the training and funding of terrorism from Afghanistan. That's why we went to war there. Okay, so Al Qaeda has been decimated. It still exists. ISIS has been decimated. It still exists. They are still a threat, but not the threat that they were, 10 years ago. Okay, so they know if they stick their head up, we're going to find them. Okay, and we're going to take them out. Okay, so what became the Bush doctrine was you're either with us, you're against us. You're either support terrorism or you fight against terrorism. Okay, and so countries around the world have worked together to try and decimate these organizations. And right now we're in a pretty good place. Okay, but there's always those sleeper cells. Okay, there are people in this country right now that are groups of terror cells. You know the Boston bombing, right? The Boston Marathon bombing, okay, which is one of the most recent terrorist attacks. We've had others. We've thwarted many, stopped them from taking place, okay? So I'll post that video, and guys, if you have some time this weekend, it's an hour long. Check it out, man, because it really gives you the experience of being in New York that day, and just the chaos and the heroes that were made that day. Okay. All right. So the last thing I touched on on this political party affiliation thing in the video yesterday was the death penalty. Death penalty? Huh? Anybody get that far, Jackson? Okay. So I'm going to move on to number 10, which is privatized Social Security. Okay. Now, you've all heard of Social Security, right? How many guys have had a job? Okay. Okay, you all have. All right. So you've all paid into the system already. Yeah, I was talking to Mr. Barber last night. We had some time because we had a parent walkthrough. I had 4. Stayed for 2 hours, missed volleyball. Okay. Social Security. I'm going to give you a little history here, okay? So Social Security was created in 1935, okay? And basically this is old age income, okay, for people. Because there was really no system set up to help the elderly other than your family. Okay? You can no longer work and so forth, and you have no income. Okay? So they made the retirement age 65 years old, and everybody would pay in a certain amount of money each month, and then when you retired at 65, you're paying into the system, so they hold that money for you, and then they give it back to you when you retire. Okay? So it's not welfare, because you invest in Social Security. Okay? So the money you're putting in is hopefully what you're going to be getting back. You noticed I said hopefully. Okay? Now, the life expectancy in 1935 in this country was 66. So the average American would be on Social Security for how long? 1 year, on average. Sure, people live a lot. Some people live a lot longer. Some never made it to 66, right? So, or 65. And so, as far as a financial burden for the country, it wasn't a huge financial burden, okay? But today, life expectancy is closer to 78. Now, for women, it's around 80. For men, it's around 77. Okay? Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but for the first time in more than a century, life expectancy in this country actually declined. 2 years ago, there was 1 month where life expectancy declined, just by like a couple of days. You know, not like by a year. You follow me? So we're kind of reaching a peak, maybe, or we'll hopefully see some new medical advances that may extend our lives a little bit longer, or we become a healthier people, which is really the #1 killer is heart disease. So it's really how we treat our bodies and what we put in our bodies that creates heart disease for most people. Obviously, there's hereditary issues there as well, right? So if you have a history of heart disease in your family or a history of cancer in your family, that means, guess what? You are more likely to get those as well. Okay, of course, I have both in my family. All right. So same thing with like alcoholism. I don't know if you know that. If you have alcoholism in your family or even mental illness in your family, the children are susceptible to those things. Okay. So both of my parents were alcoholics. My sister and I have to be very careful about addictiveness. Okay. And we've done pretty good, my sister and I. So now, back to Social Security. Okay, so today, what you pay in, okay, is 6.2% of your paycheck goes to Social Security. Okay? That helps fund it. Okay? The average recipient, okay, the person on Social Security today, grandma, the average is $1,300 a month. Okay? So if I pay 6.2% of my income a month, okay, I'm helping to fund grandma today. Okay? Back when this started, the 6.2% would go into a Social Security fund, and the money would stay there. In the 1970s, the United States Congress saw all that money sitting there, and they said, you know what? We could use that money for other things, like building roads, or for the military, or for other things. And they robbed it. There is no Social Security fund anymore. So the 6.2% that you pay in is used directly to pay the recipients now. You follow me? Which that was a really dumb thing to do by Congress. Stupid. Okay? Now, so how much do I pay in? The average income in the United States today, the average person makes about $50,000 a year. Okay, you take all the rich, you take all the poor, you take all the middle class, you average them together. 50,000. Okay, I am pretty close to average. All right, so you can see what the average person pays in. Okay, it's from 2016, so I've gotten minuscule raises since then. So this is a 2-week pay period. I paid in $130 Social Security over 2 weeks. So over 2 months or over a month, it'd be 260, right? Okay. If I divide 260 into 1,300, which is the average, okay? So I'm dealing in averages here. Now, if you work your whole life, okay, and pay in the whole time, like Mr. Barber started working when he was 12, paying into Social Security, he said, he's going to get a bigger check than that. You understand? Okay. So you have a lot of like stay-at-home moms and so forth that may have worked for a few years. Their check's going to be less than this. Okay. All right. So if I divide that into that, it takes about, let's see, how many people? 5? About 5 people, roughly, to pay for one person retiring today. Make sense? It takes 5 working people to pay for grandma today. Okay? Now, one of the biggest problems with Social Security, okay, is this. In 1946 to 1965, the baby boom. Okay? That looks like a pregnant woman. It's a nice graph, isn't it? Okay. This group of people, if you were born in 1946 after World War II, it's a larger population of people. Okay. If you were born in 1946, 70, or 56, 66, 76, 86, 96, 2006, 2016, okay, you're 70 years old, 75 years old. So this group of people is retiring now, okay, which means there's more of them that are on Social Security, okay? And so that puts a burden on the taxpayer today. And there's no Social Security fund, okay? So the latest number I heard was 2037. That's 17 years from now. There will not be enough money to pay this. So they're going to have to want to do one of two things. They're either going to have to cut this for the old people or raise this tax. Okay? Which do you think Congress would do? They're not going to cut this, are they? Listen, old people vote. And if one of the two parties says, we're going to try and fix this system or change this system, the other party is going to say they're trying to take away your Social Security benefits. Okay? And they're going to scare you. So literally in the year 2000, when George W. Bush was running for president, he was going to try and privatize Social Security, which is what's on your sheet. Okay? And the Democrats ran commercials, like cartoon commercials of George Bush pushing an old lady in a wheelchair off a cliff, saying George Bush is going to take away your Social Security, trying to scare people. Okay? Now, he won, but when he got into office, the Republicans controlled Congress, his party. And he said, okay, guys, we got a chance to fix Social Security. Let's do this. And the Republicans in his own party said, no way, man. We want to get reelected. Because if we try and do something, then Democrats can use it against us, and we're not gonna have power anymore. They call Social Security the third rail of politics. You've been to New York. You probably rode the subway. So when you go to the subway in New York, you hear horror stories about people being pushed on the tracks or falling on the tracks of the subway. Don't touch the third rail, because that's the one that carries an electrical current, and you will fry. If you're a politician, Don't touch Social Security. It's the third rail of politics. Your political career will die. That's what they call it. So we just keep doing the same thing. Okay, and we don't fix the system. The system is totally inefficient. I mean, this money that we're putting in should grow. You know, when they had the Social Security fund, at least you get a little bit of interest on it. Over the 50 years you're working, you get some interest on it. It grows. In this way, it's just redistribution. My money going directly to grandma. Your money going directly to grandma because you don't get a refund on your 6.2%. Okay? So, here's how privatization would work. Okay? So, my 6.2%, my $260, okay, this is what we're going to do. We are going to have to raise taxes temporarily. Okay? So, we're going to raise this. We'll just raise it to 7%. Okay? This is going to cause this to be $310. Okay? So we're still going to give grandma for $260. Okay? But how much do I have left over? $50. Okay? This goes into my account. $50 a month. 50 times 12. $700? 5 times 12. Come on. You gotta have some math people in here. 50 times 12, $600. Yeah. All right, now, this money, that's a year. 1 year. Now, can you retire on $600? Okay. All right, so today, one of the things we've done here is we've raised this to 67. When you retire, it'll be 67, if not higher. So that's one other way to delay it. To delay the inevitable of this thing falling on its face. Okay. So, all right, I want you to listen to me here. Okay. So, when you were, if you were 62, when this started, we're going to do this for 5 years. Okay. 5 years. $3,000, right? Now, you're going to get interest on this. Because you know what you're going to do with your account? You're going to invest it. It's going to grow. Now, if you're afraid of the stock market, then you can put it in a CD, you can put it in a money market, you can put it in bonds, or you can just put it in a savings account. How much, do you guys have savings accounts? What kind of interest you getting on that money? Like what? Oh, 0.0 something? That's ridiculous. Guys, you got to make your money work for you. You get a statement on your savings account? And how much you make off of that? Like $1?
Yeah, it's not very much.
You're letting the bank hold your money for you, and they're using that money to loan to somebody else, and they're charging them 4% interest, and they're giving you less than 1% interest. That's how banks make money. They use your money. So you got to put your money to work for you. Okay, so over a 5-year period, investing this $600 is $3,000. You're going to make some interest if you do your money right in the stock market. Okay, so this $3,000 is going to be more like $3,600. Follow me? Now, when you were 62, you started doing the same thing too. Okay, so now you have $3,600 in your account. Now you're 67, right? You're retired. Now you don't need as much of this. Now this isn't a huge nest egg, is it? Okay, so we're just going to cut this a little bit. Okay, just a little bit. Which is going to allow you, which was what was $50 a month, right? To now put in how much? We're gonna cut this, so we can cut this, right, to 240. So now you're putting in $70 a month, right? Times 12. Okay. What's that? 70 times 12. 840. Okay. 840 times 5. Right? 5 years we're doing this for. $4,200. Now, the more money you have in the stock market, the faster your gains become. Okay, you start making more on interest. So you invest $100,000, you're going to make more interest than if you have $100 in. Yes? So now you've got 4,200 plus 3,600, that's 7,800 plus interest. Okay, now your little kitty is $10,000. Okay, 10 years in. So when you were 57 to 67, now you have 10 grand in your account. Okay, which means we're going to cut this again. Now we're down to $1,100 a month. Okay, this cuts this to $200 a month, which now means I've got 50 plus 60. I got $110 a month. Okay, times 12. Oh, that's 1,200. Times 5, $6,000. Plus interest, you're at 16 plus interest. Say you're at $18,000 or $20,000. Right? So when you were 52 to 67, now you have $18,000. Maybe more with interest. Okay? So we're going to cut this another $100 or $200 to $900. Okay? We're going to cut this to $150. And now you've got 50 plus 90, $140 a month going into your own account. Okay, times 12 times 5. It's going to take about 30 years to convert to a privatized account. So when you're 18 and you start in this system, by the time you get to 67, you'll have well over $1 million. You can't touch that money till you're 67. It's mandatory savings on the part of the government. They're saying you have to put away this $310, and at some point you can lower the taxes if you want, but this is becoming your money. You know what I mean? This is your retirement. So you guys have heard of 401k? Okay, we have a 401k here for the diocese. Okay, so every month or every paycheck, I take money out from my 401k. Where is that? $100, 104 here. Okay, every 2 weeks, so $200 a month I'm putting in my 401k. If your company you work for offers you a 401k when you go to work there, yes, you're taking money out of your check, but guys, they match it. That's the thing about a 401k. So I put in $200 a month. The diocese puts in not quite 200, but close to that. That's our retirement plan. It's the 401k. So if you fully fund your 401k, the diocese matches. That's free money. Do it. okay? I know your check's gonna be smaller, but guys, you're planning for retirement. Okay, so you add your 401k into this, and guys, this country's set. People are set when they get old. They can afford what they need and more. Now, there's only one country that's done this, and it was Chile. And it was done under a dictator. His name was Pinochet. And he forced everybody to do this. And guess what? It worked. But people are afraid of this. People are afraid of the stock market. I mean, if the stock market crashes, what happens to your stock? And the same thing with your 401k, because that's where your money is in the stock market. Okay? There's risk. And you don't have to put it in there, but you're not going to get the type of growth you want. The stock market goes up between 6 and 12% over time. Some years are better than others. Okay? Since Trump's been in office, people that have money in the stock market, 401ks, which is a lot of working Americans, more than half of Americans have money in the stock market. It's just not the wealthy. Okay? Our portfolios have been going up. Okay? If you look back here, this is the stock market. Okay? Is that following me? Come on now. You're going to be famous. Okay. These two graphs are basically the same thing. If you watch this, this is 1934. Okay? Just give me a second. And all the way through 2015. Okay? You have ups and downs. This is 2001. This is after the terrorist attack. Okay? It went down here. You see, it took a while to get back up there. Okay? But if you look at the last couple of years, it's like that. Okay? I'm getting closer to retirement. Okay? So, some people like this, some people don't. There is risk involved. It does scare people. Okay? But this system, the way it's designed right now, I mean, it's going to run out of money. Okay? And we can do much better. Have a great weekend.
Yeah.